Hello, good evening, everyone out there. It's such a amazing pleasure for me to host this conversation and to always, pardon me, intrude into your space. Well, it's a wonderful intrusion because we're bringing you knowledge, insight, and understanding, and the entire essence of what we're doing is to really impact and transform your lives. I value knowledge and I value information greatly. And I've come to realize that you are who you are because of what you know. And if you can upgrade your knowledge, it will make a great deal of difference to repositioning you. One of the things that I've been saying constantly is that life is all about how you are positioned. And so this is one of those programs where and conversations where the things you will hear would go a long way into strategically positioning you so that you can take advantage of the moment and take advantage of the season. And this is going to be a very, very techy event because we're looking at the subject of technology, innovation, and cybersecurity. And we have a host or a team of people here today who are going to be dialoguing with us, and they are technocrats in this field, and it's my privilege and joy to bring them to you today. So I want you to stay glued to your screens and your devices, and as I often would recommend and suggest, that you push the share button on your platforms right now. And the beauty of that is once you share it, other people can connect to your page and be part of this broadcast. Someone out there needs to hear the things that are going to be said here this evening. And so it is going to be such a great joy that you become that platform through which that person is able to access information. I am Shola Adesoye, and it is a privilege and a joy to bring you conversations in the tech world this evening. So here we are. And the first person I'm going to be bringing up is a man who has really demonstrated capacity and competence and has shown the whole world that a young person can do great things and achieve great things. And it makes a great deal of difference because for someone like me, I interact with a lot of young people. And many times they complain about the environment and speak more about their disadvantages and the reasons why they're not able to attain to greatness or to do great exploits in their lives. But here's a man who has positioned himself rightly in the tech world, and he's doing an amazing, amazing, amazing job. So with great pleasure, I'm bringing on screen now the one and only Sanusi Ismaila. And I know he would just give a grin coming up on screen, especially when he hears the one and only. So great having you on this broadcast this evening.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much, sir, for bringing me. And it's always a pleasure to be home. And this is home. Even though we're on the internet, this is still home.
That's wonderful. And this is also the beauty of technology, that we're thousands of miles apart, and yet we can come into each other's space and be in every house that is open to this broadcast. And I guess that's the joy of a time and a season like this.
Yes, it is.
And so, well, how's your family doing? How's your wife, and how's the children now?
They're doing fine. They're all doing well. They're in another room actually watching now. So they're doing well. They're doing great.
So they're cheering you on from somewhere else.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. All right. So here we are. My first question to you is going to be, how did you stumble into the tech world? I mean, how did you get into the space you currently occupy? Where did it come from? Were you exposed to technology at an early age? Did you visit a museum of the Internet of Things or whatever it was? How did you get here? How did you stumble into becoming such a technocrat, as you know, as we like to put it?
Okay. So I'll just say I'm someone that likes to play with technology, and I'm curious. But I think the origin story would be that growing up, I grew up in a house where it was okay to ask questions. It was okay to explore. It was maybe not okay to break things, but it was tolerated to a certain extent. So I got to get my hands dirty. My dad used to have, I think the very first piece of technology that I can remember would be my dad's hi-fi set. It used to be a big set back in the day with like turntable, two cassette players, equalizer, and the whole thing. So I always fiddled with that and played with it a lot, to the point of probably spoiling it once or twice. Then after that, I just continued exploring. I got access to a computer with internet, my dad's computer with internet, a very long time ago. I think we had a computer with internet when I was around 9 or 10. And I just started playing. I started playing with the computer, trying to figure out how things worked. And that would, for me, be the genesis and, the consistent, the thing that's been consistent throughout. The fact that I see something I think is interesting and I want to play with it. I've never really, I didn't study computer science. I got my first job working in telecoms, a technology job after graduating for microbiology, and so about a month after service. And the interesting story was the telecom company at the time was trying to hire for a particular skill set, and they couldn't find someone for a while. So somebody that knew me and was like, if anyone can, this guy probably can. So tell him to send his CV, and I sent my CV on a Wednesday, and the next Monday I was in Lagos trading. So that's like a short. Yeah.
I mean, that's a crazy story. That's an abnormal story, because how does someone migrate from microbiology to the tech world? That's not an easy migration. I mean, I can understand maybe an engineering field, into tech, but microbiology. So you kind of have deprived us the opportunity of maybe finding a vaccine for COVID-19. But how did that happen? I don't know.
So I think the thing is, and it's stuff that I like to say, I think the thing actually is a function of how you get exposed to technology and how you think or what you think about technology. I don't think technology is it's not I don't see it as an industry. I don't see it as a course that you need to study. I think it's more like a culture. It's a way of behaving. It's a way of tackling problems, and it's actually a way that can be applied across any discipline. So with that approach, it stops being, if you've lived your life a certain way, then you could apply the same skill set you've used in your microbiology or in engineering, and just migrate it. Obviously things are a bit different, but it comes with taking it not as an industry but as maybe a habit or a culture.
So just something you love to do, and therefore
Yeah.
you then engage and get to gain understanding through time. Now, well,
Whether you love it or not, but yes. You don't have
I
to
mean,
love it.
I think your story is exciting to people out there, because with the COVID-19 world, some people are probably thinking of making a migration that's similar to yours as well. So Sanusi Ismaila is a former microbiologist who is now a techpreneur. So you're the founder of CoLab. I mean, we must commend you for this. And this speaks about innovation, which is part of our discussion today. You're the founder of Collab and the CEO of Precognition and Precog Media. How did all this come into being? Did you wake up one day, you had a dream, you saw these companies, and voila, here we are. The rest is history.
No, actually. So when I was at the telecoms, when I started telecoms job, I at some point started dabbling in programming a bit more, and then I found out that I started doing side gigs, which I thought I enjoyed more than the actual job. But I started building websites for people. I started building apps, and at the beginning it was like for this friend or that friend or someone, but it got to a point where it had to, it got more serious, and people were like, we need to see a company profile, we need to do this or that. So I had just seen a movie at the time. I would remember the name of the movie now, but I just seen a movie where there were these beings who could see the future, and they were called precogs. So the name stuck, and I went to CAC and registered a company called Precognition, which did the software thing. At that time as well, I used to write. I had a blog that used to be really popular. It was called Tech Suplex. It talked about technology, but the idea of it was breaking down technology to an easy way that anyone could pick it up. And so that also got serious at some point, and I started dealing with some big companies and big brands. So I had to go register a company, and I was like Precognition Media, Precog Media. That happened. So Collab is a mix and match of a bunch of ideas. The first idea was I had an office for Precognition at the time, which was kind of a very large office that had just me inside, which I think used to weird people out. But it now happened that people started coming over to the office. So I get a phone call, oh, your generator on, can I come and do this? Or can you show me this? Or can I come and use your internet for a while? So people started coming to the office to the point where I couldn't even be productive anymore. That was one idea. The second was the fact that also at the time I was thinking about expanding a bit, because I'd gotten a bit of traction, and I wanted to hire a bit more people and scale up. And while just thinking about it, I tried to do like an analysis of what had gotten me there. And one thing that stuck when I looked at all the things that I wrote down that I thought were my advantages, one of the things that struck me as odd was just the fact that I was based in Kaduna. Being based in Kaduna means that besides like a lot of the other advantages, access to talent and stuff like that, your operating costs are very low. And it meant that I could be very competitive across the country. And at that point, I didn't even have in Kaduna. So the second idea stemmed from, thinking about what if I could, rather than expand and make it about myself, find a whole generation of people and build an ecosystem of people that were able to think like me as well, and take advantage of the low operating costs and all the advantages to serve the world, sort of like an outsource center / innovation center. And that those two ideas, plus a few other ones, was what became Collab.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that story. One of the things I take to young people out there, go watch a movie. Go watch a tech movie. You never can tell what will come out of it. Now, so here we are in a COVID-19 world, and everyone's mind is now tuned to post-COVID. So we're literally mentally projecting that all of this is going to come to an end at a point, and we have a new world that we're living in. Now, the question I want to ask is, there's a lot of disruption going on, and someone like you is at the center of such disruption. So I guess that while some other people are complaining, you probably are like, wow, this is my moment. This is that time we've been dreaming about, because now you've got skills, competence, and capacity willing to deploy. Now, I want to ask you this question. how much do you think technology is helping to shape the COVID era? And how far do you think it's going to go?
Yeah. So I think the first thing to say is technology has always shaped every era, every era. So right from the Stone Ages, it was technology like stone tools that moved them to the next level. It was the printing press that moved people to the next level. The internet moved people to the next level, and I think that's happening. That's happening here as well. What I think what's happening actually is it's not that technology is moving per se. What's happening is that some things that were at the fringe or that were not mainstream are now becoming mainstream. I'll give a couple of examples. I have been using stuff like Zoom for 2, 3 years now, and Zoom was pretty normal. Now everybody's using Zoom. It was always there. It wasn't like it's a new innovation, and that's really what happens when these things happen. Some things get accelerated. I can see, and I think the industry is also going to change, or it's changing already, based on a few things. But I just want it to be out there that the idea isn't that the world is changing. It has already changed, and the changes aren't sudden. They were there. We just were not. They were not in the center, but now they're in the center.
Now, I mean, and that's good to know. So platforms like Zoom and all of the platforms like the one we're using as well for this broadcast truly had always been there. So we've witnessed an acceleration. Zoom, quite interestingly, now has a market capitalization of $48 billion, bigger than Lufthansa, Delta, all combined together. I think American Airlines, a combination of airlines today. Now, however, in spite of the fact that what we're witnessing, via COVID is an acceleration, I also believe that an opportunity lies within this context for innovation as well.
I agree. I think, funny enough, I think the biggest thing that COVID has showed us in the technology space generally is the fact that we haven't innovated enough. We've not solved most of the tough problems. It's unheard of that in 2020, a virus, as small as it is, pretty dangerous, by the way, but as small as it is, has shut down the global economy. And when you think about the fact that this was pretty much the same response to the last pandemic, which is probably around maybe 1929, then it means that while a lot has changed, a lot also hasn't changed. Because if since 1929, we've not been able to innovate to the point where we're able to solve a problem like this without shutting down the whole world, then it means that there's a lot of things that haven't been done yet. So it doesn't take everybody, elevate like the people there now to God status. It opens up the floor to everyone else, meaning that there's so many things that can still be solved that haven't been solved, and they're there open for anybody to take.
Awesome. In what areas do you see young people like you, others who are younger, innovating within this current scenario that we're in? I mean, there are opportunities in every crisis. So here is a global crisis. In what areas, can young people innovate?
Okay. So I'll say I'll talk about a bunch of things, but I think that there are a bunch of areas. The very first thing, particularly, because particularly focusing on people that are in Nigeria or Africa, is to realize that you no longer have, it's no longer an option to connect to the global economy or to try and tap into the global economy. And even though this is a bad time to do so, because people are being laid off, so there's more talent looking for jobs now. It also opens the opportunity up for remote work. Pretty much everyone is working from home, so it means people are getting more comfortable with people that would work for them from other places. Now, how can you start to take, for instance, the cost structures that are here in Nigeria and apply them to earning less than what somebody in, say, the UK or the US would earn, that would still make a lot of sense to you. Those are at the background, those are the kind of thoughts they should be thinking. So that aside, you can think about stuff like agriculture, for instance. I think that the global food chain to an extent has been disrupted. So how can you plug into that? Not just from farming. I have a friend who jokes that in Nigeria there are very few farmers, but there are a lot of people that farm, meaning that farming is something that people go into because they don't have options versus people actually going to farm. But how can you start to think about, say, increasing yield per hectare for export? How can you start to think about mechanizing farming or urban farming and stuff like that? There's a lot of things to do in agriculture. Then look at healthcare. Healthcare is like the center of this, and you don't even have to start thinking about vaccines and stuff like that. But how do you even manage data? One of the things that has become evident with fatality rates in COVID is that they're underlying. Most of the people that die have underlying illnesses. We live in a place where we don't even check. We have no records. So again, huge opportunity there. How can you help doctors make quicker decisions? How can you help nurses make quicker decisions? Large opportunity there. Look at education. Education has blown wide open. There's a debate about, so people who are at home now and schools are sending them bills for school fees. Like, what do you do? Because you're at the end of the day, you're the teacher, and that content is available everywhere. Like, you don't necessarily have to get good school to get the content. So what are the ways that you can start to teach children again? Or what are the ways that you can engage even adults, like online? Big space. So you can think about it across multiple transportation, social distancing. How are you going to solve that problem? Are people going to, when this is over, are people going to be so happy to go to the market? Maybe you could get them what they want to their house. So e-commerce, like, everything is blown wide open. This is like a reset if you think about it that way.
Wow. Everything is blown wide open. I saw something on Twitter I think it's about 5 weeks ago, where so test kits were actually being delivered using drones.
Yeah.
And, so here we are in Nigeria, we still got a challenge because once the test kits, the tests are taken, there's always a time lapse between getting from point A to point B. And so in some part of Africa, technology is being used to deliver that. Now, again, let me put this, and I hope those who are out there are listening to this conversation. For me, the crux and the major thrust of my life right now is knowing that whenever there's a crisis on the face of the earth, opportunities lie within the crisis. So the key thing is, how does one plug in? How does one dovetail? How does one ride the wings of the storm, so to speak? And for those of you who are out there, that should be foremost in your mind. Ismaila just said to us now that, and he's just trying to show, different sectors, delivery, for example, and logistics, is huge. People want stuff, but they don't want to engage public spaces anymore. So how do they get stuff that they want from whatever the vendors are, delivered to them? Huge opportunity in every city. And I hope that those who are out there will be able to take advantage of it. Now, Nigeria has been taunted, so to speak, as being the next IT center. Well, let's say the IT hub for Africa, next to India. And we keep hearing about the potential of young people in IT space. Nigerians innovate, easily and stuff like that. But yet, it doesn't seem to have taken, moved as quickly. It's not coming into being at lightning speed. So why do you think it is so? That's the field in which you plow and operate. Why isn't it so? Why do we have millions of youths with great potential, and many of them diverting such potential into cyber crime and yet we're not yet the IT hub for Africa that we should be.
So that's first of all, that's a really good question, and I think there are a bunch of reasons. I think the first one, which isn't so very obvious, is that it's cultural. It's not. I don't think it's in our culture to innovate, and I'd explain that. Innovation comes from curiosity, right? But we live in a place where, and this is, let me focus on Nigeria, but it's actually Africa wide, or at least sub-Saharan Africa wide. We live in a place where children, for instance, aren't supposed to talk at the same table that adults are talking. Children are supposed to be quiet, not ask questions. So from the very beginning, we start to kill that inquisitiveness, that curiosity. I was lucky to grow up in a house where I was able to ask questions, get answers. I was able to explore, and go to a school, a secondary school where that was. I went to a secondary school where you could stand up and say, teacher, you just made a mistake. That's not how the equation is supposed to be, and you would not get punished for that. You'd actually be applauded for that. So I think that's one. And when I say it's cultural, people always say, no, we're innovative. But think about this. Since the very first time I visited my grandma as a kid, we fetched water by throwing a small leather bucket into a well, right? We still do that today. It doesn't take education to innovate. It doesn't take an education to stand two sticks and put a stick across and pull. That's not education. It's a cultural thing. You see, and when you start to travel, see how I've seen someone in London sell water in traffic, and I was surprised. But what was more surprising for me was that he didn't carry it on his head. He was wearing it. If you go to a place like Rwanda, they don't carry it on our head. But we still do that. Like we're not thinking, and that's probably part of it. So that's one. The second problem is our education system. The focus is on remembering versus thinking and exploring, and technology is almost opposite of that. For technology, you just need to understand the fundamentals. There's no right answer. It's okay to copy to an extent and stuff like that. So our education system is almost counter the way technology goes. And then I think lastly, I'm not sure we've seen enough success stories. When we look around us, the people that we see did make money from tech. People that we think are successful look very, very different from what the successful technology people look like. As soon as we start to see more success stories, particularly from younger people, more people would naturally gravitate towards that.
And then I mean that's fantastic. I think we can add to that pool also, power issues, energy considerations, and an enabling environment. Again, maybe we'll throw into that mix policy from government to enable young people. I mean, significant. Now, I'll take certain things from what you've said because you've taken us to the home. And it is true that culturally, even though that is changing significantly, but in many homes, young children still can't ask the right questions. They are seen as being rude to say, Dad, why must I sleep at 8 p.m.? And, they get a knock on the head, whereas parents should encourage that, and I know spot on our educational system as well, where people are taught to cram and it's just to story to pass an exam. And whereas in other climes, what your teacher wants to see is the thought process that went towards answer delivery. And so we do have a lot of work. So literally for young people, it's growing up in a hostile environment. But you are a model, you are an example that has shown that even in that hostile environment, someone can still, press and push and still emerge as an example for young people. That leads me to my question. So, because one of the areas of expertise is also with startups. So how does a startup start up?
Yeah,
Because
good
people
question.
complain about not having enough money, and so many things. So how does a startup really?
So I think the first thing is that when you have an idea or when you think you have an idea, the most important thing is to start, regardless of what you have. Um, I think a lot of times we put too much emphasis on what we think we need versus what we should do. Whatever the idea is, think about the smallest way to test it, to get it out there. So I'll give you an example. You want to, one of the examples I gave earlier was um, is delivering things from the market to people's house. Now, the average person that wants to start that think about renting an office, getting a bike or bikes or cars, internet, maybe a website, an app. What you literally need to do is broadcast your phone number in a broadcast message on WhatsApp or something, put it on Facebook, put it everywhere. If you need this, call me. I will go and pick it up for you. You go to the market, pick it up, enter a taxi or a bus, and go deliver, get paid. What you start to do is that not only are you acquiring customers and collecting money, I personally don't advise people to do surveys and stuff like that. They're not realistic. The real test of whether an idea is good or not is whether somebody would give you money for it. And once you start to make money from it, you also start to collect data, which is something that is not, we don't do a lot here, but it's something that you should pay attention to. What things are people buying on Mondays? What things are they buying on Tuesdays? What things are they buying, every day of the week? What things are they buying on what months? What things are they buying at what times? How does the price of what you're buying fluctuate? All of these are data points that you can later use to maximize. So you may come to a point where you realize that every Monday people buy 20 packs of Indomie. So rather than going to the market to buy 20 packs of Indomie, you go to a wholesaler, buy the 20 packs of Indomie and have it waiting for them to order. You've done two things with that. First, you've reduced your delivery time because as soon as they order, you can start heading to their house. But secondly, because you've gone to a wholesaler, you've saved some cost, which is more profit for you. So that's just an example. But once you have an idea, try and pursue it as fast as possible with as cheap as possible. Put it at the back of your mind that it's okay to fail. Like it's okay for it not to work. If it doesn't work, well, it didn't work. And the last thing I would say on that is that one of the things that I see a lot is people fall in love with the solution they have. But you're supposed to fall in love with the problem you're trying to solve, not the solution. The solution may be very different from what you think. But if the problem is real, then and you keep pursuing it, you find a solution that actually works. But if your solution is a bad solution, but the problem is real, you keep trying to force people to use your solution when they don't want to.
People fall in love with the solutions that they have provided. And that itself is getting off on the wrong foot. So this is my idea. I don't care whether it's sellable or not. I love my idea. I love the fact that, it's a reflection of innovation. You must subscribe by compulsion. And that is quite instructive. Again, you talked about data because data is also being taunted to be the next big thing. For example, we've seen a couple of tweets in recent times that covers subjects like what Nigerians spend time, searching on Google. And we found out, I think it was last year, that wedding dresses was really big. And so if one were to take that information, then okay, look, lots of Nigerians are thinking marriage, and you think about, all the paraphernalia that's required around marriage, and that enables you to be able to start up. So I think that is really, really useful, that we've got to be able to access data. Again, from a tech perspective, data is money in today's language. And I think that possibly young people should also look at how they can become, avenues for data, collation, so that they can then, and if data is money, if you can access data and you can collate data, you can then sell that data to organizations, and so businesses that may require it in order to make business decisions. So this is probably where would do some kind of transition. And I want to ask you regarding the church. So that's my primary constituency. And the question I want to ask is there an interface between the digital world and the spiritual? Is there really one? Because they seem to be so distinct and seem to be so separate and unique in their own way. Is there an interface? And what should we be doing what should the church be doing at a time like this?
Okay. Again, really interesting question. And just to take it back a bit, I think where the disconnect, first of all, I think, let me say, the basic thing is, I think that Christianity or the church is supposed to be very tied, in line with technology. When, say, Jacob was serving and, he had the agreement that if the sheep were born in such a way, they would be his, and if they were born such a way, they wouldn't be his. Deploying the stick that he did in the water, that's technology. And it is whether we want to agree or not. So I think the problem, or where the disconnect is that for us here, religion has been more doctrine versus a connection with God. If you connect with God, like these things would, if you have a relationship, these things would come easy and naturally to you. Like one of my favorite scriptures is, in Romans 12, the second verse, it talks about renewing your mind. That's what technology is, like being able to be a certain way, get new information, and change the way you are based on the new information in another direction or in a faster direction. When one of the phrases we like to use a lot, in technology is disruption, right? But the ultimate disruptor, or the ultimate disruption, was the arrival of Jesus Christ. That was disruption, coming to change the way things worked. But somehow today we're sort of like, we read about the Pharisees and the Sadducees, but to an extent we're becoming them versus embracing technology. So technology is church. There are places in this world, the same world that we live in, where homeless people that live on the streets go to church to connect to the internet. Like church is how they get access to the internet. And that's how they get saved. That's the draw that brings them there. So it's stuff. I think one of the reasons why this is happening is, maybe God has gotten tired of saying, listen. He's like, okay, I'm going to force you to do it.
So we're in a default mode right now where we're compelled to just embrace it. And yet I know it's a challenge for lots of people as well. The story you just shared just shows that God is also God of tech.
Yeah, he is.
And tech is beautiful and can serve his purposes as long as we align it, within his will and his purpose for the earth. Well, that's amazing. Again, for those of you just joining us, Ismaila Sanusi is on the conversation, and we've had an amazing close to 40 minutes right now. In a little while, I'm going to be bringing Seun Onokoya on the screen, and he'll be part of, the conversation, the next phase of it, and would have the opportunity to also cycle Ismaila out. So in just a second, he'll be on board. All right. Here is Seun Onokoya. Good to have you on the conversation. I hope network is fine at your end and you can hear me clearly.
Yes, thank you, Pastor. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me today.
That's awesome. Seun is also a techpreneur, and he's a systems business practice facilitator and so many things. Seun, I don't know if there's anything you want to throw at Sanusi.
Okay, I want to have
We
his.
can.
Yes, I would like to have his take on 5G. Maybe that's a good point to start. What's your view? I know there's been a lot of conversations around 5G, so so I think that's one thing I would like to hear.
And he's in the UK, so I think it's also a wonderful opportunity for him to tell us what's going on over there.
So
exactly.
over here, I think one of the most interesting things that happened, and it happened just around the time that I got here, is there were reports of people burning 5G masks in the UK, and I have personally seen a few graffiti posts, saying 5G is this and 5G is that. But thankfully, at least I used to work in telecom, so I can maybe explain 5G a bit, right? 5G stands for fifth generation. It doesn't stand for any other thing. And what it means is that it's like a next level of tech, of communications tech. 1G, funny enough, in Nigeria we used 1G. So if you cast your mind back to the time where we had the what they call Not 9 Not, the analog phones, that was 1G. The analog, not analog house phones now, the analog mobile phones. That was 1G. And the way they work, they were called analog because voice is a waveform. So when you talk, sound is a waveform. So with 1G, what they did was they increased the pitch so it could go farther. And they had like repeater stations. From 2G, rather than keep increasing the pitch, what they did was they made the signal digital. So it could even go a lot further. And one of the really interesting things about this thing is 2G is not one technology. It's several. It's just all the technologies that are at the same level at the time. When we used, for 2G, for instance, there was the two major competing technologies were CDMA first and TDMA, which GSM uses, right? And the basic difference, TDMA, T is time, C is code. The difference was that the signal is broken into packets and sent from point to point. With TDMA, which GSM uses, it's put back together by time. So it will say, okay, I sent this at 10:59 XX seconds, XX microseconds. When it gets there, the one that comes at immediately after that is supposed to join behind it so that it comes back to voice. With CDMA, it was broken into like a code snippet, and a simple form of that would be ABCD. So breaking into snippets of an alphabet ABCD, and when you get it back there, you join. They competed. With 3G, there are competing technologies. There was Evo, there was the regular GSM 3G that we used. There were a lot, and that's why back then it's a bit different now, because now everybody puts all the radios. But back then, if you bought a phone from the US, it won't work in Nigeria or on some networks, and that was just simply it. And 4G, there were two competing technologies. There was WiMAX, there was LTE, and a lot of us are using LTE now without even knowing. And then 5G is just like the next level. It's safe. And I've seen so many things. Like people say, oh, radiation, this, that. The amount of radiation you get when you step out in the sun for a minute is more than the radiation you get from your cell phone, using your cell phone for 10 months straight.
Wow.
If the sun hasn't killed you, your mobile phone wouldn't kill you. Right? It's just 5G is faster internet. Just think about it that way, and that's it.
Well, thank you for throwing light, because it's still an issue in the minds of people out here. And just like you've said, even out there as well, conspiracy theories keep getting weaved. And look, if 5G doesn't come into being, whether we like it or not, we'll have an upgrade. So we may skip 5G and then we'll move on to 7G. But there's got to be another G, and they could take the G off. I mean, just like you said, it's fifth generation. It's as simple as that, So, Sanusi Smiler, thank you so much. We've learned a lot from you. And to those who are just joining, you can connect with him at Super Sanusi on Twitter. You're going to see pictures of him and his family also, and some of the experiences he's having. CoLab itself is the first innovation lab of its size and of its type in northern Nigeria, and it's there in Kaduna. So you can connect with him at Super Sanusi on Twitter and glean from his wealth of knowledge and wisdom. Thank you. It's really been a joy having you on this broadcast. I wish we could just stay with you and ask all the questions we can. But the things you've spoken today, I mean, is enough food for thought for us to glean on. So thank you, and love to your family, and enjoy. I don't know what you're having tonight. Is it pizza or a hamburger?
I'm really enough. I'm done for today. But I had rice and beans, like normal Nigerian food.
Awesome.
It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you very, 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 very much. And it's a blessing to me as well. So it's not something that I take very lightly. I'm always happy to be here. This is my home. It's home.
Thank you. Always welcome home. God bless you. All right. So that has been Sanusi Ismaila, and I'm sure it's been engaging. Some of the stuff he said, we've tried to highlight. And if you've checked the bottom of the screen, you see some of it scrolling down. A lot has been said, and it's always, a huge opportunity to learn from someone who has been there and done that. There's this comedian I've been watching in recent times, and he kind of positions himself in his skits as a motivational speaker. And he tells you things like he made 5 million when he was 2 years old. By the time he was 6, he had built his mansion. And while it's humorous, one of the things you find with a lot of motivational speakers is that they speak about things they've never done. And for me, well, it may stir someone up, but I'd rather have someone who has walked the path and has, built something and established something. So here we are. Seun Okoya, for some, is known. For others, we're introducing him to you today. And he is CEO, GWP Limited, AOG Consulting, strategy consultant, systems business practice facilitator. I mean, he's all kinds of things, but you get to find out, whether he's really worth his weight in salt or in gold or whatever you may say. So let's move to education, because that for me is critical. And that's one space that you find great, expression. With COVID, there's been a major disruption in the education sector globally. I like to zero things down to Nigeria because we have our own peculiarities here. Parents out there are homeschooling. School has to continue for lots of people. We've moved from offline to online. However, and this is where rubber meets the road for me, it still appears to be elitist, because what are we going to say about the young student in Zangon Kataf in Kaduna State, where electricity is not concerned? He probably has never seen a tap before. And yet, education and learning, teaching and learning is being delivered using technology today. And it seems as if by virtue of our environment, some people are being ostracized. Now, so going forward, because this is the new norm for us today, How do we bridge the gap between the privileged and the underprivileged? How do we have a holistic education system and process in a country like Nigeria?
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you for having me. Education is one thing I'm passionate about, and we've done quite a few things in that space. When it comes to the COVID era and post-COVID, we have an issue, especially in terms of the access to internet when it comes to people who are actually attending public schools. Now, it shows that we are what it is to actually educate the populace. People who have access to internet today can continue with education. But for most public schools, they can't. And this is where the opportunity lies for people who are willing to step into technology, as it were. It's also where, in terms of regulation as a nation, we need to look at how we regulate and how we invest in terms of internet infrastructure. If people don't have light, for example, they can't access nothing. They can't access anything. Even if they have, for example, I know a state that gave all the students in the public schools tablets, but you can only power that tablet when there is light. So if there is no light, you can't power the tablet. So there is a dimension that we need to look at. One, we need to look at in the rural areas. How do we power people's houses outside of what we have at the moment? Everybody is trying to connect to the national grid. So if we can domesticate or democratize power such that every home can have what they need, then we would be able to solve that problem for them. Whether we're going to use solar, whether we're going to use other renewable energy, probably wind, or any other renewable energy that can be accessed. Now, if we're able to solve the power issue, then comes internet access. How many homes would have access to the internet? For example, what we've also noticed in this season is that people are actually not, a lot of schools are actually not involved in e-learning. What they've actually done is that they have just moved traditional learning into the online space.
So what's the difference?
Now, the difference is that there are tools, there are applications for delivering lectures online. So, for example, a teacher who normally teaches in class, what they're doing right now is some schools, what they're doing now is that they are delivering the same content that they're delivering, they're delivering the same content via WhatsApp, via Telegram. It's not robust enough, if you're going to really learn something. There are a lot of applications, education applications online that needs to be integrated into teaching. So what we're doing right now is that we still have our teachers coming in front of a screen and teaching this same way they've been teaching in class. It's not, it's going to help, but ultimately it's not going to improve the mental capacity of these children. We have children today that once they pick a laptop, they can dismantle the entire laptop, and they know where applications are, they know what the applications are for, and they know what to do with it. So our complexities are numerous. One, we don't have lights. Two, we don't have internet access. Three, the Nigerian curriculum is a problem on its own. So you find out that what's happening, a lot of schools even celebrate the British curriculum, the American curriculum, because we don't have a curriculum that we have. It's not as if we don't have, but it's nothing to write
We're not proud about it, yeah.
about. And truthfully, that is a big space for anyone who is willing to step into that curriculum space.
I mean,
because the problem with the online teaching that we're having right now is the fact that we need local content. Just the way Nollywood has shifted, a lot of people have moved to Nollywood because of local content. It's going to happen the same way in education. So we are going to need local content for our education. So my take is this. One, the government needs to reprioritize. We look for a way to provide energy. We need to look for a way to provide internet access to people, or else what we are going to have is this: private schools will continue to run, our public school students will continue to stay at home.
and I mean, that is what is happening right now. Now, there are certain things you've pointed to, and I think for me, this is the essence of this conversation. So we've got an energy problem. Now, while we are saying that we will wait on government, I believe that there are also solutions that can be delivered outside of what you call the national grid infrastructure. And that's very important, because that's an opportunity where you're looking at solar, you're looking at renewable energy, you're looking at wind energy, and so on and so forth. So that's a space. But also the tools that would be used also is a space. Let's look, for example, at states like Lagos state government, Ogun state government, and Kaduna state government have even moved out of the need to depend on internet, and they are delivering learning and education using terrestrial television. So we still find technology being a tool that's used, but right now it's not internet. But critically, you said something that I think anyone out there whose mind is working right and who is thinking of innovating should begin to think about. It is that what is even happening right now is not e-learning. It is just patch it up and let's do something online and let's call it whatever we want. So there is a huge opportunity, and there's a huge space for people out there to develop solutions using diverse platforms and really develop, e-learning and deliver e-learning. I remember that, so I started, a doctorate program. And the first time I went into class, what amazed me was the fact that there was nothing, no e-learning platform even in the university. And this is in Nigeria, no e-learning platform. And I thought to myself, at its basic level, even if it's teaching and learning, with a camera, recording what was going on in class. So at basic level, without it even being e-learning, that could have been done. But still, nothing is being done. And I don't know. Why do you think it's so? Is it our mindset, or is it an issue with just us as a people?
I think that we 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 need to, is our priority, sir. It's about priority. If we so much prioritize education, we already know what is happening globally, and the global technology space is not going to wait for any country. And because they're not going to wait for any country, we will need to play catch up at this point. In terms of what we require to do these things, it's most of it are available. So if most of it are available, the question is, why are we not doing it? Now, we consult for a few schools, and you find out that over 3-4 years, we've been trying to deploy this same technology that people are scrambling about now to a few schools, and they seem not to be receptive to it. And one of the reasons we found out, and this is why one of the reasons they are not receptive to it, is the fact that a lot of teachers prefer the way they've been taught. Now, if you go back, you have a teachers training college which churns out teachers for schools. The question is, how are they being taught at the teachers training college? If they do not interact with technology at the teachers training colleges, how do you expect them to interact with technology when they are in a live class? So we need to go back to go forward. That is very paramount. For some, is also the fact that the skills are there, but how many people are willing to give the time to it to be able to learn those skills? For example, you have a lot of free courses on Google. You have a lot of free courses on Allison. You have a lot of free courses on Udemy. You have free courses on EDX, Coursera. But how many people are willing to give the time that is required to actually develop those skills? Now, one of the reasons they've not done that either too is because they felt that it wasn't going to be needed. So at this point, everyone, every teacher, every school owner is being forced to learn about technology. Like Ismaila said, Zoom has been here since God knows when. Skype has been around. So all those video conferencing tools are not new. They've been around. E-learning platforms have been around. Udemy, Allison, and the rest of them have been around. It's the presence of mind to actually say, I need to do this. I think this is important. And we need to do it as a school also. So a lot of schools are scrambling at this point. And we are the challenge for schools at this point is that they now have a competition. And the competition is homeschooling, because parents are going to realize that they have access to so much content, and why should they be paying your school to teach their children? It's going. You need to give, as a school today, you need to give parents a reason to continue to pay you to teach their children. So that's the dynamics are changing.
That's a major disruption. I mean, my first exposure to homeschooling happened to be with, friends of my family who were living at that time in Orlando, Florida. And so we went on holidays to the US and we went to visit them. And we found out that they were homeschooling their children. Now, the children are in university. They would be graduating any time now. And they were homeschooled right through. To be honest with you, at that time, I found it absurd. But you see, in this COVID reality, in this COVID world, it's no longer absurd. It's become part of our reality today, and it's something that we definitely must embrace. So
It has come to
it's come to stay. And going forward, what I see happening is that new schools are going to change their modus operandi, and they're going to provide options
definitely.
to parents to say, okay, look, do you want a homeschool, or do you want full, offline, so to speak, residency kind of program where the children are in their classrooms? And there are parents who would look at the cost factor and say, I'd rather homeschool, and say, okay, maybe my wife is going to be the one who will be at home, because with our friends, the wife had to devote herself to be the teacher. And so she did a fantastic job at it as well. Now that we're seeing that homeschooling is tending towards being a permanent feature, is it safe? Is it going to be safe for children? Because now the dependence on the internet is a big thing. And at this point, I think it'll be good to bring Thaddeus, up, because we're beginning to look at safety now, and every parent is concerned about their children. So I'll be bringing Thaddeus Akingbile up in a little while, and we'll just, talk back and forth and gain, understanding and knowledge. So in a second, Thaddeus is going to be up. Remember, this is The Conversation with Shola Adesoye. Well, welcome, Thaddeus Akingbile. Good to have you on this broadcast.
Thank you for having me, sir. Good day,
awesome. Sir. So, good day. You guys, this is your turf. This is your terrain. And we've come to where we're looking at, homeschooling, and it's become part of the new reality of our world. And there are parents out there who naturally are going to be concerned about the safety. So it's a new concept now. Whereas a child is in a normal school, and you're thinking about safety within that environment, safety in the playground. Now we're thinking about safety on the internet. And let me lay this, as a foundation. Recently, there was a report of, e-learning delivery using the platform of Zoom. And somebody hacked in and began to distribute pornographic material to the students in the class. The teacher had to act quickly and shut it down. So question is, parents are going to be thinking of protecting their children and also prioritizing privacy. So you're the security expert. Shehu is there. I am here. What do you have to say to these things?
Thank you very much, Pastor. In security, we always talk about defense in-depth security, which is an hybrid security system. Now, if you look at what is happening, there is a level of interaction from the school to the home. And the school involves the parents and involves the pupil. Now, because you have a lot of people involved in the interconnection, so what do we do to ensure that there is security? Now, because this COVID-19 came upon us all of a sudden, a lot of people were not prepared. In fact, security is what any organization will pay for the least. So we are not thinking security. So what is the available solution, the available tool to use at this particular time? Zoom became so popular. And the security is there. The teacher that is setting up a Zoom class does not understand that the minimum security that Zoom provides, you should implement. So if for every school, the administrator locks the class, because you can actually lock the class. Once the number of students are complete, you lock the class, you are able to know those who are trying to come in. You log the class, you create a room such that if anybody wants to come into your live class, the person must first go through the room. So you know who is in the room and you can permit. So when you log the class, the person needs to reach out to you. That is from the side of those who are hosting, the host. And from the side of the parents, now I must say, sir, every parent has become teachers. They cannot sleep now. They just must be at alert because we have not done the fundamental. And sir, the fundamentals are there from the school to the government. We don't understand frameworks and policies and procedures that we actually need to put in place for all these things. Because it came suddenly, we are not able to put frameworks in place such that we can actually do on online, we can do parental security, children security. There are certain areas that you cannot move to, but a framework now, educationists, those in education will now begin to think of setting up a framework to say that for any school at the lower class, at the primary class, at the secondary class, this is the minimum standards that must be in place before you will engage any student or any pupil. The pupil pay for you to be able to pay your teacher, for you to be able to fund the school and all that. And if you don't put these standards in place, we will say no students should come into your school. So these are very critical things. Frameworks, IT security frameworks, IT security policies, IT security procedure wrapped together to form a standard policy. So those who regulate the school must come out without requirement for you to do online school. It is very key. So these are missing things that is making our security porous even in our nation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Thaddeus. Again, back to Sheon. Look, you deliver solutions to schools. Is there a willingness to pay for these things? I mean, Thaddeus just said this, that most organizations do not want to pay for IT security. They just, they reduce everything to, okay, I've got nothing antivirus. And therefore, how much did it cost me? If you come up with any other thing, I'm just not willing to make it. And I mean, Thaddeus has said, yes, parents will pay for it. But you find a scenario that if we're not careful, it's paid for. But the school owners are saying, look, do we really need it? So, what's your own experience based on that?
I think for some schools that we've worked with, the issue of security came secondary. It was not primary.
Secondary.
Yes, it wasn't primary. It came as a secondary issue. And it came as a secondary issue because there was internet school-wide, and students started assessing pornography, assessing gambling sites and all, So we had to come in and we deployed a few solutions that checkmated that scenario. Now, security must be a primary focus. It can no longer be secondary. Even at home, as a parent, it must be primary. It can no longer be secondary. Now, children are so smart that they can dismantle your entire smartphone. So let's start from there. What are the security protocols you need to put in place on your smartphone? Your children are engaging in online classes. Now, what are the security protocols you need to put in place? We've had situations of even bullying in this COVID era of this online school that schools are migrating to.
Online
so
bullying.
How do you check that? How do you check that in a situation where even the teachers do not know what to do? So security can no longer be a secondary issue. It must be a primary issue.
Primary.
And yes, it must be a primary issue.
Okay, thank you for that. It must be primary and no longer secondary. Thaddeus, back to you. Look, so while opportunities are out there, e-learning is being delivered, innovation is coming to, the forefront and the frontier of the COVID world. Again, when we look at certain sectors like banking, and so on and so forth, cybercrime is on the rise. Should we be concerned?
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pastor. Like Shion said, security now is a new normal. Security, if you have not been paying attention to security, this is the time you must pay attention to it. And again, Pastor, security could be expensive and security is also affordable. And for over a decade now, personally, I've been paying less than 10,000 naira annually for some security that I use on my Google and my other platforms online. Some of these securities are not so expensive. Minimum to the home. We must deliberately, we have not considered it very important. That is why, because you can browse, you can do whatsoever you want to do. But I tell you, if I should give an analysis of what the internet and everything to the nation, there's something everybody know ISP, but not most people know what is called IXP. The data funnel that comes into the nation, the data that every one of us is using from Lagos to Kaduna to Abuja, it comes through this IXP, X for Xerox. So it comes through this IXP, and if there is a standard framework in place such that the IXP deploy the first level security, there are certain things that we would have thought of. So we reduce its defense index. So the government will apply the national security, the companies will apply their own security, then the homes. By the time it gets to the home, you are not paying so much. Now, recently, I don't know if you heard the news, a set of students locked out their teacher for 2 hours. The teacher that was teaching them, they locked her out because she's not as savvy as they are, and they played for 2 hours before they brought her back. No, the teachers now need to understand that I must know technology, I must know security. Certain tools, alert, notification, you must know how to handle them. I have seen how you have handled this meeting today. When we came in, you are able to see me, you are able to see the other participants. You can put us in the backstage, and you are a pastor, a very known pastor. In your busy schedule, you are taking up these security challenges too, and strategies you are putting in place. Every home now must begin to put. They are not expensive. With a little, in fact, one of my payments online is as low as 900 naira, sir. As low as 900 naira. Then I have not paid more than 10,000 naira online. Now for Microsoft, for the home, Microsoft has a lot of technology that can be used in the home. There's something called MDM, Microsoft Data Management, that you can also deploy. Every home, if you are using Microsoft or Apple, you can sign up to this monthly payment that is not so expensive, so that you can secure your mobile phone. Now, over 80% of the Nigeria access to the internet is through the mobile. So we must deploy mobile security. It is now very, very important. All homes must buy those little, you can buy from Microsoft, you can buy from recognized vendors. It's not so expensive. By the time you buy for a year, it's reduced. But I think, sir, it is not too much for homes to even spend up to 50,000 for security in a year. So we must begin to invest into security. And again, let me say something before okay?
No, go ahead.
Hello, sir?
Go ahead.
Okay, I want to say that if you look at the population of Nigeria, the urban population to the rural population is like 52% to about 48%. So most of the data and the security, the intervention that we are talking about is actually around the 52%. Actually, not really the 52%. The 9 million people, official 9 million people in Lagos, the 3 million, and if you calculate all those ones, they are not up to really the population that we are all talking about is not up to 30 million that we are talking about. If you look at those who have BBN in Nigeria, which is adjudged, those who are savvy, is about 35 million. So all the interventions around these people. What about people who don't have access? In terms of education now, coming to education, what about people who don't have access? What are we going to do about them, sir? I just wanted to throw that in, sir.
Well, it just shows you the space that exists for people to step in, and deliver solutions. And that's part of what we've just spoken about, and for me, again, I have to keep reiterating the reason for conversations like this is to let people know that there are opportunities out there and they need to begin to think of how they would seize this opportunity. So there's a huge space and for solutions for education delivery. There's a huge space for security. I mean, this is where young people probably need to start writing applications. I remember, I think this was about 16, 17 years ago. I had installed some internet, system in my house, and we were using radio way back in Kaduna then. My children had access to it. And as a parent, a responsible parent, I began to think, these children may just get onto some sites because you've got people who are out there who are phishing and you've got malware and all kinds of things. And I had to invest money. I think then it was about 6,000 naira to install a security software that would block them from accessing certain sites. And we're talking about 16 years ago. I had to do that because I was concerned of what my children could be exposed to using the internet. Now, so talking about these things makes a world of difference. And I hope that those who are out there who are listening are taking note of this conversation and the things that we're saying and how important it is. Now, if we move out of that, let's go to church. I keep saying, no matter where I go, I end up with church. Should the church be concerned about cybersecurity?
Yeah, I thought about this. This is 5G is coming. As far back as 2014, to the glory of God, I attended a training in Florida on Internet of Things and RFID. So I saw it coming. We are no longer talking about IP4. We are talking of IP/6, which is going to allow even your button. We have an IP address. So I can actually track a particular button. I can track a lot of things. Today, there are hospitals abroad that you control prescription. A lot of automation everywhere. You can control the prescription. And if an attacker to change your prescription, you can easily kill a lot of people. So if an attacker should hack into an hospital that prescribes, you can just kill. So the internet, as good as it is, becomes the tool in the hand of the black hacker. So we have the white hacker and we have the black hacker. The black hackers are those who do bad things. So for the church, imagine the database of your messages. You have been in ministries I've been following for a long time. That database, somebody can go into it and wipe it off in one day. And if and if you don't have business continuity, the church now must begin to talk business continuity strategy. Now, church continuity strategy. Now, I don't mean church continuity in terms of the vision that that Peter saw upon this rock. The church of God will always advance. But in terms of the tools that we engage for ministry. So our work, how do we ensure that if certain things happen, we can actually go back and somebody can edit your message and somebody can cut off where you have expatiated on a particular topic and they cut all your explanation away and they will still leave it. So if subsequent people go to YouTube to view, now they will view the wrong thing. So how do you know? So there's something in security that we call checksum. The glory of God, about 2 weeks ago, there was a presentation like this. I gave extensive recommendation to the church in Nigeria, what the church needs to do. So the church now needs to begin, after every message, the church needs to do analysis. So that brings in, they are generating data. Today, for the past almost 2 hours, we have been generating a lot of data. After this meeting, a team is supposed to go back and we know that this is the original document of what we have done. The checksum of what has been done. There must be checklist to say this particular recording is 25 MB. It must remain 25 MB, except we compress it. We keep it in the continuity of church framework. We detail all this procedure such that hackers are not able to come into the church. Now, if a live stream is going on, this is even what is more dangerous. And I see, I'm sure before the end of this year, this will probably happen. When a sermon is going on in live stream, an hacker can move the pastor away and show himself. So what security tools do we have in place to ensure that our OBS, if they are OBS, the cable that connects our internet device, are those hardware secured? What are they really secured? The connection from our internet to the cloud, are they secure? So we must begin to look at putting security in place. However, sir, the most important thing is that churches now must have information technology policy and information security policy, which must detail everything, because we are online and this is the new normal. Sir, when I was facing the floor and praying for this, I gained understanding that the biggest church in a few months and in a few years' time will be online. We will see pastors that will come up and they will never own any physical building, and they will control millions of people. Like it is already happening. If any musician in Nigeria are controlling 2 million, 3 million people, imagine if one of our musicians that is controlling about 6 million people gives his life to Christ. He automatically has a church, a large one. So the church must be ready to implement security, information security from that framework strategy. So the board of churches must now have board information technology director, chairman, who will be part of the church. We must begin to put board information technology, that chairman will have his own board information technology committee, who will look into technology implementation, technology execution, technology formulation, application security, and so many other things, and they will be subject to audit. It is audit not like we do it in the world, but audit to know that we provide excellence. The church must lead. The church must show the word. And because if the church can get it right, sir, then we will begin to know how to tell the country continuity management. Nigeria does not have, I have not seen anything that talks about continuity of country management. Like in the world, we have business continuity management. Where is the country continuity management plan for Nigeria? So if churches can do it now, it will begin to give us ideas of how to teach the world, the church, the nation, how to do it. Thank you, sir.
Wow, that is deep stuff and very, very, very instructive. Because, and I hope that there are leaders out there, and if you are not, if you're a person who belongs to a church and you're hearing this kind of thing, I think it's important that you get your pastor, to get back on this platform and listen to what Thaddeus just said. And honestly, that is, I can tell you that we've been thinking security, but you've spoken certain things right now that is making me say, I just try to imagine if my space in the screen is taken off and somebody else comes and begins to say whatever. It just ruins everything that we're doing. And those are possibilities that exist. Databases can be stolen. church members' records, and it can be exploited. I mean, someone sent me, maybe you may throw some light on this, Sadio. Somebody sent me a WhatsApp message. So I belong to certain groups. Some of them are community groups. And somebody sent me a WhatsApp message where he called me and he said, "Oh, I'm representing XYZ ODU group. We're supposed to be having a WhatsApp, conversation. Other participants are going to be there. Have you received your message or your notification?" And I told him, I said, "Well, at this time, I won't be able to make it." I thought he was sincere. He said, "Okay, have you received the notification?" I said, "No." Then he said, "Okay, wait, you're going to get the notification." And a message came into my WhatsApp. And then he said, "Read the message. There's a number there. Read it to me." And I began to get concerned to say, "Look, first of all, I'm not attending the meeting because I have another meeting. You're a stranger. I don't know you. Why should I read the number to you?" And when I insisted, he hung up. Now, I've come to find out that that's one of the means by which scammers can take over your WhatsApp account, and then they begin to send messages asking for help, financial help, and they just come up with all kinds of things. Again, the reason why cybersecurity is very important. I don't know whether you can throw some light on, just what I've said, and it's beginning to happen more now because of the COVID-19 scenario. So, Thaddeus, back to you.
Because you are thank you very much, sir. Because you are a popular person, a lot of people probably have your number, and they can just add you. Anybody, WhatsApp will just allow you to add. So now in security, we have the people, we have the technology, and we have the process. And we have been able to see all over the world, anywhere in the world, that awareness is the solution to information security vulnerabilities in any space. So we must be aware. We must be aware. And one of the things we must know is what you did. What you was trying to do is called social engineering. So, and he was using the principle that we call reconnaissance scanning. He's going to be testing whether you will, is a bait, whether you will fall for it. And awareness is, so which means, to add to it, the church now needs to do information security awareness. It is now very, very critical. I think the church is the primary educational platform for the nation. So the church now, if your church with 5,000 congregation can empower 5,000 people to be aware of information security, that 5,000 people we encourage to empower just one person. That is 10,000. The 10,000 just one person. So, and we do that quarterly in my space. We do that quarterly, but we do it daily. We do daily in terms of awareness, but the training, to train, rigorous training, we do it quarterly. And the church should be able to do that. Now, awareness is when somebody that is not familiar comes to your space, do you just jump to answer? Native intelligence. One of the way to not fall victim of security flaw is native intelligence. Why are you pestering me? Why must I do it now? Why must I do what you want now? So with that, you are, you just don't want to do it. Number two is, I want to beg everybody today that is listening, go and implement, yes, WhatsApp has two-factor authentication, but that is not enough. You need to do SIM lock. SIM lock. Now, because, of course, I know that SIM lock, yeah. So you take your SIM. Yes, sir. In fact, as a matter of fact, the most important part of your phone is that SIM card. Without SIM card, they can do a lot. They can change your number. Somebody else can have your number and use it. It's called spoofing. So you need to do SIM lock. So if you have not done it after this meeting, you go take that SIM, go to the settings and set password for your SIM. So even if they bypass, when we started, I said defense in depth. It means layered security. So you SIM lock your SIM. If anybody wants to try anything, it will always ask for the code of that SIM before even getting to WhatsApp. So when you are able to SIM lock nobody can spoof your number. So we should do SIM lock. we should continue to be aware, read security magazines, security news, and be conscious of what is happening every day, so that you are able to ward off a lot of these bad elements that we have every day. Now, because a lot of people are hungry, Nigeria, the larger population of Nigerians, they are more into brick and mortar. They go out every day. Now, a lot of them cannot go out. The boys start thinking of how, because this is the office. The phone is the office for everybody now. And before the end of this year, a lot of people will be more tech savvy, and a larger percentage of those who become tech savvy would have been taught the wrong thing. And so you will see a lot of attacks. We are going to see a lot of attacks. We're already seeing them. Between February and now, it has gone up drastically. So one of the things that I also encourage for churches is we implemented in your email, you need to set up a security banner. And this is very simple. Now, that's why I said sometimes security is not expensive. Now, I've left the WhatsApp to the church. So the church needs to do very simple things. For your email, set up a security banner. Every email that comes from outside of your own email domain, you should flag it. So you put a red banner. Now, it does not mean that the email is, it does not mean the email has any security issue, but it puts you on your toes that any email that is not from Lighthouse, because if it's for Lighthouse, is within your network. But when it's outside of Lighthouse, it is from Thaddeus. It will put a red banner and you know that it's an external mail. So what we did, and that's one of the things we implemented by the grace of God January this year. So what we did is any mail outside our system, we already flag it red. So it puts you on inquiry to read very well, to see very well before you take action. And I think I'll stop there, sir. Thank you.
Fantastic. Now, I love what you're saying. Can individuals employ the same, strategy as well personally, or it's just linked to organizational, email domains?
Okay. Pastor Shola, I know you have the website, and I don't know the number of people who are using the same domain with you. So it is different who are using the same they won't send those guys will not send you phishing mail and all that. But those who probably will send you phishing are those who are outside of your network. So you may want to do that. But for those using Gmail, you just rely strictly on Gmail. But if you are using your own personalized domain, you can implement it. For all those who are using personalized domain, you can implement it. Yeah. And I also would encourage that the personalized domain, their email security is rendered by your ISP. Now, security is wide. You need to now you need to ask questions from your ISP. What security? Most ISP, a lot of hosts in Nigeria, they are not implementing any security. You need to check the security of your ISP. Demand, now that this is why I said the regulator needs to step up in Nigeria. We must put up framework for all these things so that, so let me not digress again, but thank you, sir.
I mean, this honestly is quite interesting. One thing you've said is, which is big for me, is that so right now people can no longer engage in work, especially in the informal sector at the lower rung of the informal sector. So they've got their phones in their hands, and through this device, you're spending time with it. You're connecting with people who are also teaching you the wrong side of operating these devices. So naturally, going forward, cybercrime is it has increased already, but it's going to increase. And again, we're having some of our children also having access to technology. So this is not just about us protecting ourselves, but it's also protecting our children as well. And like you've mentioned, native intelligence for a lot of people is absent. And I tend to think it is worse when you are a Christian, because the tendency to believe, you take scripture, love believes the best of everybody, and that exposes you and makes you vulnerable. Instead of applying, the principle of audit everything, and you must be able to verify and attest to someone's character before you can fully release yourself. So there's a high level of vulnerability and gullibility within the church, and therefore native intelligence, just like you said, needs to be at the forefront, and people need to be aware that times have changed. The COVID-19 world is a more dangerous world. The risks are, it's a riskier world than before COVID. And therefore, arm yourself, get all the information you require, and be willing to spend money to secure yourself. I had an experience many years ago where someone hacked into my information, went into my bank account, and I had a bank account outside the country. Went into my bank account, applied for a loan, withdrew that amount. It was, I think, £5,000 then. The loan was instantly granted. The person wired the money out, and I found out 3 days afterwards.
Wow.
Personal experience, very painful. The bank was not willing to accept responsibility for it. And we went a huge fight. At the end of the day, I had to pay the money back. So I have learned from a personal experience that if you don't take, cybersecurity seriously, you will pay for it through your nose. It happened once. I made sure it never happened again. And this is like 15, 14 years ago. I made sure it never happened again. So this is real serious talk, and we can't thank you enough, Thaddeus. Sheon, any closing points, and then we'll come back to Thaddeus.
Thank you, Pastor. I think my closing point basically will be that as parents, I'll take it in two forms. One, I'll talk about education. As parents, we need to begin to learn a lot about how we can further develop our children, what resources we can use, and how we can also secure our children when they are exposed to these technologies. Then for people who are involved in business, for me, I want to say that due to the rise in our population, it's imperative for us to continue to look at innovation in three critical areas. One, education in terms of content development. We need Nigerian content. We need local content when it comes to our education. In terms of agriculture, food security is paramount. Once we can no longer have access to food, there is going to be an uproar in this nation. So we need to look at that point. How do we have food security in our nation? I think that is very, very important. Also, we also need to consider our water resources. I know a lot of communities don't have access to good water. However, it's imperative that we need to consider how we use technology to ensure continuous water access. These are some of the things that I believe are critical. These are things I think we need to look at and ensure that we can provide solutions to going forward. So that's, for me, those are new spaces that people can look at, new spaces that people can research into, and they can start. And also, on a final note, I'll say that digital skills are the basic skills everyone must have. They are basic. They are not MBAs, or let me put it this way: digital skills are your new MBAs.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you must have them. It's your primary school. It's your new primary school.
Awesome, Shield. Thank
So
you.
whatever you're doing right now, you must have those things. Thank you, sir.
Thaddeus, thank you, Shield. Thaddeus, closing comments.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pastor, for the opportunity. I'm indeed very grateful. I would just like to tell everybody, friends of Pastor Shola, the body of Christ, that it's now very important that the government put in place information technology strategy to meet that. Churches must now put in place information technology strategy. The homes too must have an abridged version of information technology strategy. So it is there. So we must put in place information technology security at the government level, at the church level, and at the home level. Then it is important that the government, the church, and the home demand that every activity going on around all the tools that we use, from our mobile phone to our laptop, I can trace it. That is what we call auditability, which means, and this is very important for the homes, parents must go back to the history and bookmark of their children's laptop and phone on a weekly basis. I think you should do it daily, but if you cannot do it daily, you should do it weekly, because you cannot monitor everything. Because when you go to the history and the bookmark, you can actually see what they have visited, how they have visited. I tell you, sir, one of the big issues that will come out of beyond COVID-19 is what we call remote code execution vulnerability. It's called zero-click vulnerability. Zero-click is one of the things that will happen. Vulnerabilities that will trigger from your system without you knowing, and because you have been online, zero-click. So you don't even need to be aware. And these things are now embedded in images. And you have images from WhatsApp. Everybody is sending you images from WhatsApp. And in your email, the email signature of anybody sending to you with image can come with an RCE, remote code execution. And what is the aim of all this? The biggest reasons why these guys created RCE, zero, is to avert your data. I am afraid for the days to come that some boy somewhere will have the data of many homes in their database with RCE, remote code execution. It's called a zero-click vulnerability. Zero-click vulnerability. So what do? We should scan our systems regularly. Cybersecurity is a big thing. It's big money. And you know what? They are all programs. They are all codes. And once they can fly on any browser, you are in trouble. You must do your browser check, your history check, your bookmark check, and if possible, delete them once it's not needed. And don't store passwords. Now, there is no reason why to store passwords. I also advise that don't open too many browsers. It has been seen that it is also possible for an attacker to come in through that. We just need to be more deliberate and be more planned, so that when we go online, we are conscious of what we are doing. And finally, I want to reiterate again that Nigeria needs a country continuity plan. Country continuity plan with regards to information technology, cyber security, and every other aspect so that in times like this, because it is happening now, it's almost every 5 years there's a pandemic. Ebola was just about 5 years ago, and it disrupts our lives. So in times like this, so that we don't begin to run because we don't know what to do. The moment we see anything like this, we just activate, just like we activated in our businesses. We activate the country continuity plan. So that is my take for Nigeria. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Thaddeus Akinwile. And Thaddeus can be found on Twitter at Thaddeus A on Twitter. So you can connect with him and just follow him and, dialogue. There's a lot he has to share. But the truth is that our time is rather short. And Sheun Onokoya, thank you also. You can connect with Sheun on Twitter at Sheun Onokoya. That's his Twitter handle. I can't thank you both enough. Thank you so much for coming into this space, for accepting to come into this space, to educate Nigerians and people out there who have joined us online and others who will be joining us much later, because it remains, on social media so people can connect to it and be blessed by it. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. God bless you. I will look forward to connecting with you again shortly.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, it has been an amazing time. I don't know what you learned from this conversation, but I can tell you that even as the host of the conversation, there are many things I have learned today, and there are many things that I'm taking away from here. For me, it's always a pleasure hosting these conversations, because I know that someone out there is learning and receiving information, and someone is experiencing a paradigm shift. And so, with joy in my heart, I'll keep coming to you on this platform and bringing you unique conversations that will change your Well, we are not done yet. On Thursday, I'd want to invite you to join me for a special conversation. And we are going to be looking at the church and her mandate in a post-COVID-19 world. So we're revisiting the church. What is our assignment, especially in this time, in this new normal that has come upon us? And we're having Pastor Segun Olugbemi, who's a pastor, author, mentor, and he's a strategic thinker. He's going to be joining us Thursday, 6 p.m. This is going to be a 1-hour broadcast, 6 by 7. We're done with it, and we'll move on to other things. So I look forward to you joining me Thursday, 6 p.m. West African time for this amazing conversation, the church and her mandate in a post-COVID world. Again, always a joy being on this platform and bringing deep conversations to change and transform your life. I am Shola Adesue, a joy to be here with you. And as I sign out, good night. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening with your family. Take care. Keep safe. God bless you.
The COVID-19 pandemic is real.
However, you can prevent its spread through these measures.
Wash your hands often with soap and running water for at least 20 seconds, or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
Cover your nose and mouth with disposable tissue or flexed elbow when you cough or sneeze.
Don't touch your eyes, nose, and mouth with unwashed or unclean hands.
Maintain a distance of at least 1 meter or 3 feet from people.
Stay at home, and if you feel unwell, self-isolate.
Remember, safety begins with you. Stay safe.
If we all observe the basic rules of engagement and stay at home, the virus will not spread. I am committed to stopping the spread of COVID-19. I am Lighthouse.